Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
I'm Ted.
And today we're going to be opening up our monster manual to do Dungeons and Dragons and monsters. Ooh, what's that smell? Must be troglodyte.
If you want to jump down to the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get weekly gaming tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So, the whole concept of these videos is for us to come up with new and interesting ways to use a monster from the monster manual, different combinations, and different role-playing situations you can come up with for your players. So the thing about the troglodyte, though, is I find them actually mechanically very interesting, comparable to a lot of other monsters in here, especially because they're such a low CR.
They're only a quarter, so you can.
But they have a lot of interesting abilities.
They do. The chameleon skin, the sense, the stench, and then they technically have the ability to wear armor and use weapons. So if you wanted to equip them, you can.
Yes, and they have multi-attack with 3 attacks. So I mean, they're not heavy hitters. They don't do a ton of damage. They don't have a high armor class. They don't have many hit points.
But if you were to decide you were going to equip them, you'd have to bump that CR because, I put on plate mail and equipped it with a longsword and a shield, and it killed my party. What did I do wrong? Well,
true, but that being said, that to me that means instead of 3 attacks they would get 2.
Right.
They get a longsword. Which one longsword is actually, if they hit, it's almost equivalent to
2 claws.
Two claws, and then they would get their bite attack. One of the funny things, reading the monster, that kind of made me laugh was, like you said, they can equip and use items. They're smart enough to understand the value of them. They just don't make anything of value themselves.
They scavenge everything, and they will. It says here that they're literally able to fight over. And it says a troglodyte tribe might be torn apart by a battle over a single longsword.
Yeah, so I found that kind of hilarious.
So it's amusing the mentality of these creatures. They only have a 6 intelligence and a 6 charisma. So
this is how you defeat a tribe of troglodytes. You send your rogue in with a battle axe or something, then he drops in the middle of them, and then he sneaks out, and then you just wait.
That is pretty awesome. If you have somebody who actually passes a knowledge roll about them, that'd be a great way to.
Yeah, maybe he murders the leader because that's the kind of the glue holding them together. But after that, it's going to be all bets off for that longsword or battle axe. So the reason why I wanted to do the troglodyte is because in my upcoming game, one of my players expressed the desire to go up against troglodytes. I'm like, I don't care, sure, whatever you guys want. But then I was thinking, well, how do I use troglodytes so they'll be interesting, especially if they know that they're going to encounter troglodytes. So I did come up with some ideas, and some of the stuff they're going to know about ahead of time. But and I don't know if they'll see this video or not. Maybe you should stop watching if you're playing in that game. But so one of the things I wanted to do is, because troglodytes have that chameleon ability and have that stench ability, is I was like, well, how could an alchemist or a mad scientist type use a troglodyte to do things with?
Well, they could attempt to harvest those 2 qualities.
Well, and that's exactly what I was thinking. But I was thinking even better, what if they harvest the musk, the stench of the troglodyte, and I want them to turn it into a drug. So the players in this that are starting this game, we're starting at 6th level. So the idea is they've already encountered some of these problems already,
right?
And now they're going to be tracking the troglodyte menace to another town, right? Well, there's a couple things that are going on here. One is this drug has been introduced into the streets. And, I don't know, it's either going to be called musk or stank or stink or something like that.
I like musk or stank. Stink, yeah.
Yeah, so it's something that maybe they inhale or they smoke or whatever, or drink, and, maybe it makes them stink like troglodytes, but they're so high they don't care, and makes them kind of immune to it. But I was thinking, after, one of 2 things. One is if they're on it for a long time, they actually turn into troglodytes. So it creates this, drug slash
genetic mutation.
Yeah, drug slash monster epidemic, right? Or the other way would go would be, well, what if if they start taking it, but then they stop and they start going into withdrawal, it's the withdrawal. One of the withdrawal symptoms is they actually turn into a troglodyte. And then I was going to have, this mad scientist mastermind who is kind of like introducing this drug. And so from there, there's going to be a couple of questions. It's like, is he just really a drug dealer making cash? Or does he have like a greater purpose, a more nefarious end in mind?
I think it's better to the withdrawal symptom is that you turn into a troglodyte, because keep taking it, you turn into a troglodyte, you're gonna force the cutoff, and that's gonna stop the dealer from making money. So if profit is a heavy aspect of his mindset, then you want them to keep buying to keep them.
Yeah, but I'm not sure like the end game is money. Like maybe it's something else. Maybe he's trying to create an army of troglodytes. Or something else.
Right. Depending upon what the end game is, what the mindset of that particular character, that's gonna make your decision for you.
Yeah, maybe he's a troglodyte sorcerer or something that's like shape changed, and he masquerades as a human, and or maybe he was once a troglodyte and he got changed to something else, or perhaps he's like something from their god. I don't know if I'll use
Lagazid.
Yeah. If I'll use their god or a different one, maybe he's a servant or messenger. So that's just one of the ways that I'm working on right now to use for using troglodytes. And again, these are monsters that live underground. So like if they're actually kind of cool to use in a city, because you could have an infestation with the sewers. Maybe they're popping up in the middle of the night, and they're at first it's like pets are disappearing, and then maybe like homeless people are disappearing.
Well, the great part about them is that they, as a race, they don't think more than 2 or 3 days ahead. So you have the ability to be like, all right, well, if they steal enough food tonight for essentially 48 hours, 72 hours, you could have raids occurring every 2 or 3 days. And it could be, all right, well, they go after the easy prey, and then they go after a little bit harder as they test the limits or test the boundaries of what they can get away with. It's very interesting. And as you pointed out in the beginning, their CR is low, so they can be used at their early levels, or you just throw a crap ton of them and use them later.
Right. So. Or, one of the fun things that we've started doing with a lot of the monsters is just, in the DMG, I forget what page it is, but it actually lists like all the racial features for a lot of the monsters, as well as races. And basically you can just template them on other things, and which the NPC classes are kind of perfect for that.
Right. So you take your veteran. You're probably not going to have a knight troglodyte, but you could have a.
But it could be their version, a champion. There's the gladiator,
right,
as well. There's berserkers,
right.
There's definitely a couple of different. There's definitely a couple of different NPCs that will work out quite nicely.
Absolutely, and I would
assassin.
I don't know so much about that one, but I would certainly see that they could go towards cultists and have them worshiping this giant toad demon. And I would make anyone that would be a leader in these guys, make them fat, make them big and strong, and visibly they're well fed, and that's how you denote who's in charge.
True, and you could go one of two directions with that. You could make them just physically imposing, so that even though they're big and slow, but they're just so strong and powerful, they had no problem bullying the other troglodytes around. Or you could go with, maybe they are some kind of spellcaster,
right, so
they don't actually have to move to threaten the other troglodytes. Like the priest would probably template nicely with these. Or you could do some kind of sorcerer or warlock type build.
Right. Well, I believe the cultist has some spellcasting ability as well.
Yeah, it does. So. It's the priestess is like the next step up, right, if you're thinking, this is your big bad.
Right.
And I believe isn't the god like a big fat toad? Like, yes, that's the kind of like the thing, yep, that they aspire to.
They aspire to the toad that's so big it doesn't move.
Yeah, so I like that kind of like for the leader, and maybe something happens with with this particular troglodyte that's made him smarter than the other one. So he's got a higher charisma and a higher intelligence. So he is actually a capable caster, and he's able to bully this tribe and maybe even like gather up other tribes of troglodytes together, in order to, you know, basically, so he just sit on his throne like Jabba the Hutt, and just have, you know, the other troglodytes bring him stuff. Maybe I'll use him in conjunction with my mad scientist alchemist guy, and they've like made a deal.
That's I think that'd be a good mix.
All I'm saying though is the guy that gets the job, who has to basically milk the troglodytes for their stink glands. That job really does stink.
I would totally make the fatter the troglodyte, the worse the stench. That's the way I would go.
I think you're stereotyping a little bit, but okay.
I'm just saying, bigger means more scent glands to expunge.
So, all right. So, what else do we got? Anything else you want to throw in there before we wrap this one up?
I think that there's a lot that can be done between numbers, between mixing NPC classes. You could totally take a troglodyte and go the other direction. Have someone who has elevated stats enough that they're actually seeking help from the PCs to get away from this kind of lifestyle, because everyone else are idiots, and like they don't understand the concept of a fourth day. They don't. Even if you barely, you know, put them at average, they've got the ability to say, look, I know what 4 days from now looks like. These guys don't understand, and I've talked their ears off, and before they eat me, I want to get out of Dodge. So you could have a whole quest where you're trying.
So what you're saying is they ain't about that troglodyte life?
Yes. So you could have them. It could be a role-playing situation where they role-play with the party. It wants to integrate into society. What kind of issues is that going to cause? What kind of issues is everyone going to have?
I can see it now. The players are going to be like, step one, deodorant.
So, like, it's interesting to always be able to look at the other side. What happens if you take a monster and he's not a monster anymore? So
what if they encountered him and he's already broken free, right? Like a hermit, and. So you have this hermit troglodyte, and he's got these weird scars on his neck because he like surgically had his like stink glands surgically removed. Like he still stinks a little bit because just like ferrets and skunks, even though you remove it, it'll totally get rid of the smell altogether, but it reduces it. So like that was step one. Like and you know maybe he's trying to like bring other troglodytes into the light and get them to do the same thing. So instead of a hermit, you can even have a little colony where the troglodytes are kind of enlightened a little bit, and you know they're gathered, and the players come in because maybe there's a conflict with this colony, and you know a frontier town, local villagers, whatever, and they're like, you know, we're trying to leave the violence behind. But the villagers want to annihilate them. You know, maybe the villagers employ them.
Maybe it's a fishing village, and the waterway not only leads to the town's edge, but is underground as well, and that's where they're getting their food. So the party investigates the shortage of fish.
Yeah, well, it could be, or maybe I think it's more interesting if like the party's hired to deal with the monsters. Okay. Like in the sense, well, because in the sense, like the players are coming to kill the monsters, right? And then it turns out that the monsters really aren't that monstrous. They just got stinky feet, and they're eating the fish. All right. So that's just another way of going about it. Like I like the idea, because otherwise, like I like the idea of like kind of like gearing up the players to think that there's like conflict, and the idea is actually to resolve the conflict without any conflict.
It's always difficult. You have to make sure that your PCs are in the right mentality, because you get them into I'm going to go fight something, and before you know it, they're charging the helpless citizen and slaughtering them.
Well, I think what you need to do is like it's how you introduce it, right? Instead of encountering the warband first, let them encounter like women and children,
right?
You know, like there's these little ones running around, like they come up to their waist. Now that doesn't mean your players won't slaughter them, but it might give some of your more moral players a little bit of a pause to think about it.
Looks like a monster. I run it through.
Yeah. Dude, it came up to your knee.
Looked like a monster.
So
It was coming right for me.
it's coming right for me. With that, you guys let us know in the comments below what you think and how you use troglodytes in your game. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can tweet at us at Nerdarchy.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.